Walt Disney, what do we know about him? He built a super successful company from scratch, which has been delighting both adults and children for almost 100 years. Disney is an absolute record holder for the number of Oscars won, 26. No one has ever received this award more times than he has. Despite all his merits, Walt's reputation is ambiguous. From outright racism, sexism, tyranny, and Nazi propaganda, the creator of Disneyland is accused of many things, and it's worth noting, not without reason. In this episode, find out what you didn't notice in Disney cartoons. Did you know that some of them contained sexual messages? And is it true that Adolf Hitler drew some of the characters for the cartoons we know? This episode is about the dark side of Walt Disney's personality. Get comfortable, draw the curtains. We are starting. Sexual subtext and Satanism. It would seem that nothing could be more innocent than a children's cartoon. How can it be defamed and imbued with sexual subtext? On the internet, Walt Disney is widely accused of using subliminal messages and hidden frames to influence children's subconscious. Look at this compilation and be surprised at how much you didn't notice in the cartoons. At first glance, nothing special happens, but if you start to look more carefully, using stop frames and rewinding, you can notice some very indecent scenes, at least for little children. For example, in The Lion King there are several such moments, starting with a strange poster and ending with ambiguous inscriptions in the cartoon itself. If you still doubt and are not fully convinced of the sexual subtext in Disney cartoons, here is another excerpt for you. And there are enough such moments in Disney cartoons to this day. There is a version that in this way Walt wanted to influence adults who watch the cartoon with their children. Using the technology of the 25th frame, he thus programmed the subconscious of parents to engage in love, thereby increasing the birth rate of children. And more children means more views, and therefore more profit. According to another version, Walt deliberately inserted such frames into cartoons because he had a twisted mind. Also in Walt Disney's works, gestures from fingers associated with satanic movements, such as the so-called goat gesture, are encountered hundreds of times. That's why some people go as far as accusing Walt of propagating Satanism. Racism in Disney cartoons. In this century, racism is considered unacceptable. And after the events that occurred against the backdrop of the movement, society has become even more vigilant about racial justice. Special attention was paid to cinema. Thus, in the works of Walt Disney, signs of racism were found without reason. For example, in the animated film Fantasia, released in 1940, the dark-skinned centaur girl named Sunflower is depicted in the role of a servant to Dablesque, polishing hooves for the white-skinned centaur girls. The animated film, which by the way subsequently won an Oscar, caused a wave of emotions, including negative ones, from the dark-skinned part of the population. Later, due to the erupted scandal, the scenes with the servants had to be removed. Here's another example of racism from Walt Disney. Lady and the Tramp has truly become a cult animated film. Dogs play the role of positive heroes, while two Siamese cats, C and Am, who speak with a funny Chinese accent, narrow eyes and protruding teeth, are viewed negatively. Such a caricature of Asians. The cats are portrayed as sneaky, double-dealing creatures that are nothing but unpleasant. America had complicated post-war relations with Japan in the early 50s. Also, during this time, many Chinese immigrants moved to the United States of America. Walt Disney's negative attitude towards the Asian people was unmistakably noted in his other animated films as well. Such cartoons as Peter Pan, Dumbo, and Song of the South, all of which Walt Disney himself was involved in, were also noted for their racism. After his death in 1966, the work continued, and the accusations of racial discrimination doubled in intensity. The Jungle Book, The Lion King, shockingly dancing African rhythms, The Aristocats, The Little Mermaid, The Lion King. The list of accused is long enough. In the end, in October of the 22nd year, warnings about racism began to appear on the platform before the start of some cartoons. This program contains negative portrayals and/or mistreatment of people from other cultures. According to some data, on the first day after the warning appeared on the platform, another 10 million people subscribed. Propaganda of Nazism and sympathies for Hitler. Walt Disney's attitude towards Jews and fascist Germany deserves special attention. The creator of the Disney world was a pathological anti-Semite. He did not hire Jews and avoided any contact with them in life. So, in one of the Disney cartoons, a wolf dressed as a Jew knocks on the door of the three piglets. This version was of course later edited, but the fact remains a fact. Walt supported the ideas of fascism and openly expressed sympathy for Hitler's politics, and Hitler, in turn, was a passionate fan of Disney. Hitler dreamed of how Mickey Mouse could help him destroy the Jews, said Ulrich Stoll, a documentary filmmaker about German animation. In 1938, the film Olympia by director Leni Riefenstahl was released in Germany. This is a documentary about the Olympic Games of 1936, promoting the ideas of Nazism. The Reich really wanted as many United States residents as possible to know about this film. With this goal, director Riefenstahl goes to the United States. Stepping onto American soil, Leni faced the harshest criticism. The New York Anti-Fascist League, the Mayor of New York, and the Committee of Film Actors were categorically against the demonstration of a film propagating fascism. But there were those who wholeheartedly supported this idea, including Walt Disney. He readily agreed to help Lena organize screenings and actively supported the propagation of Hitler's ideas. Interestingly, in the 1940s, Disney refused the English request to make an anti-Nazi film about St. George defeating the dragon. Hitler also consistently reciprocated Walt, calling the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs the best film of all time. In 2008, news appeared on the internet that some characters, including Pinocchio and two dwarfs from Snow White, were drawn for Disney by Adolf Hitler himself. The director of the Norwegian Museum of Military History stated that he found these drawings on the back of a picture he bought at auction. The illustrations bear the initials AG, Adolf Hitler. The signature matches the Führer's signature, and a paint check showed that it coincides with the time of Snow White's production. "I am 100% sure that they were drawn by Hitler," says the man who found the drawings. A despotic boss and tyrant. Is it possible to build a successful company while remaining a good, kind boss? Walt Disney managed to fulfill the first condition excellently, but when it came to relationships with subordinates, he often overstepped the mark. In his company, strict rules reigned. Money was only paid for time spent directly on work. According to some versions, as soon as an employee stopped working and left, for example to the toilet, Disney clocked this time on a stopwatch and deducted money from the salary. All employees had to strictly adhere to the dress code. Men wore suits and ties, and women wore long, uncut skirts and blouses. When Disney crossed the threshold, such silence ensued that you could hear a fly buzzing. It became very difficult to work, recalls one of the company's designers, Rolly Crump. And these are just the tip of the iceberg. The peak of demand occurred during the work itself. Animators and artists often had to redo the same drawings many times because Disney was nitpicking every detail. Surprisingly, it's a fact. Walt himself was not an outstanding artist, so often he simply could not convey his fantasies to his colleagues. The staff's dissatisfaction was due to the minimal wage. Working to exhaustion, often even overtime, most employees received a meager salary. Walt promised his subordinates to compensate for the lack of money with good bonuses if the film pays off. But even after successful projects, the salary remained the same. Only a few employees, selectively chosen by the despotic boss, received bonuses. All this led to the fact that in the first year of 1941, the workers staged a strike and did not let Walt Disney into his own company. The strikers demanded a raise and the creation of a union that would protect their rights and interests. Moreover, it was not just a conflict, it was a real rebellion of the company's employees, which lasted for long weeks. Walt Disney reacted to all this turmoil with anger and the dismissal of many employees. The problem was solved only by sending the company's founder on an urgent unplanned vacation. Sexism and labor discrimination against women removed feminists from the screen. "I love Mickey Mouse more than any woman I've ever known," Walt Disney joked. But as we know, there's a grain of truth in every joke. One of the most discussed rumors about Disney is his attitude towards women. Walt's sexism manifested itself at work, at home, and even in cartoons. He tried not to hire women, as he considered them not talented enough. Moreover, they could get pregnant and leave the job unfinished. Before the war, women were only hired in the technical department of the company, where they transferred drawings onto film. The situation only changed when the United States of America entered World War II and mobilization began. Men were massively going to war, and due to the shortage of staff, Disney was forced to change its policy. Walt's position was clearly understood even in his works, for example in educational short films from the studio. It was directly stated that the role of women is to cook, clean, but primarily to bear children. In the cartoons released by the company on order from the state institutions, a woman's life was reduced to two events: her own birth and the birth of a child. In addition to everything, attentive viewers noticed that in most of Walt Disney's cartoons, the main characters either had no mothers, like Belle, Jasmine, Aladdin, Cinderella, Snow White, and Bambi, or they played insignificant roles. The Lion King, Sleeping Beauty, the dismissive attitude towards women was also evident outside of work. According to some versions, Walt Disney was never a family man. He prioritized work above all else. Thus, over his career, Disney became the owner of the prestigious Oscar Award 26 times. Think about this number, it's an absolute record. No one has ever received this award more times than he did. So there were rumors once that because of 2 losses at the Oscars, Disney stopped inviting his wife to the ceremony, thinking that she brought him bad luck. And to his 2 daughters, Disney forbade watching his cartoons, as he believed they were not capable of appreciating his work in the right way. In addition to the above, there are also a number of mysterious and dark sides to Walt Disney, such as his fierce fight against communism, cooperation with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and denunciations of his own employees. Walt could not stand communists, and therefore at the first opportunity, he turned them in to the special services. According to some versions, more than 500 of his statements about colleagues have been found in the archives. Rumors are hotly debated that Walt Disney was a Freemason. Many pieces of evidence and investigations on this topic are circulating online. The creator of Disneyland passed away more than half a century ago, and debates about who he really was continue to this day. Yes, who was Walt Disney? A good storyteller who turned a dream into reality, or an anti-hero, subtly influencing people's subconscious? Up to you to decide. Write your answer in the comments. In any case, this man managed to build a real media empire and forever inscribed his name in world history. The only question is what price he had to pay for it.